There's a trillion-dollar question hanging over Silicon Valley right now.
Mm,
And it's not the sci-fi stuff everyone likes to talk about. It's not, is AI sentient or will the robots eventually take over?
no. It's much more fundamental.
It's actually much simpler and honestly a lot messier. It kind of boils down to this. Is the entire artificial intelligence boom built on the greatest library in human history, or is it built on the greatest heist in human history?
It's the difference between a student studying for an exam and, I don't know, a chop shop stripping stolen cars for parts.
Exactly.
And for the last few years, the biggest tech companies in the world have bet the farm literally billions of dollars in infrastructure on the idea that they are just students.
Right. The narrative is that they are learning.
Yeah.
But we have a source today that suggests that argument might be dead in the water.
Oh, yeah.
We are looking at a really explosive article from January 16th, 2026 by Victor Tangermann over at Futurism, and he's covering a new landmark study out of Stanford and Yale that, and I don't think this is hyperbole, could genuinely break the business model of companies like Google, Meta, and OpenAI.
It's definitely not hyperbole. I mean, this isn't just a glitch or a bad PR cycle. The researchers found what legal experts are calling a smoking gun.
Or smoking gun.
They've managed to prove that the heavy hitter AI models of 2026 aren't just learning abstract concepts. They are memorizing copyrighted books word for word, and they can be tricked into spitting them back out.
And that's the mission for this deep dive. We need to unpack this study, look at this whole student versus pirate defense, and figure out if the legal shield protecting AI is about to shatter.
And if it does.
And if it does, who ends up paying the bill? Because if these researchers are right, the bill is going to be astronomical.
A bill that could bankrupt the industry. So, yeah, the stakes are pretty high.
So let's start with the status quo. Because to understand why this study is such a bombshell, we have to understand the story big tech has been selling us for the last, 3 or 4 years.
The student defense.
I call it the student defense, yeah.
That's a perfect way to frame it. It's this anthropomorphic shield. Companies like Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, they all rely on this metaphor that the AI is, a digital mind.
Right. It goes like this. If I go to the library and read Harry Potter, and then I learn how to write a fantasy story about a wizard, I haven't stolen J.K. Rowling's work.
No.
I've learned from it. I've absorbed the concept of a wizard school and a chosen one.
Precisely. And in the eyes of the law, that distinction is everything. They are leaning so heavily on the fair use doctrine of the U.S. Copyright Act.
Right, fair use.
And fair use basically says you can use copyrighted material without permission if you're doing something transformative like research, or criticism, or, education.
So the argument is that training in AI is a transformative act. They aren't copying the text to sell it. They are analyzing the statistical relationships between words to build a map of human language.
That's the claim. They say we don't store the books, we read them, we learn the patterns, and we move on. And they've been incredibly aggressive about this. You remember Sam Altman's stance on this from a while back?
Oh yeah, he was blunt. He basically said that if they can't train on copyrighted data for free, the industry is over.
Over.
He said the economics just don't work if they have to cut a check for every blog post, book, and news article they ingest.
Which is a terrifying admission if you really think about it.
It is.
It's an admission that the entire business model is dependent on getting raw materials for zero cost. But that defense only holds up as long as the AI behaves like a student.
Right.
A student doesn't recite the textbook verbatim on page 400. A student synthesizes.
If I ask a student to write an essay on 1984 and they hand in a photocopy of 1984, they get expelled.
Exactly. And that is where the Stanford and Yale researchers come in. They just walked into the room in early 2026 and essentially flipped the table over.
Okay, so let's look at the suspects here.
Yeah.
They didn't test some janky open source model running on a laptop. They went after the Ferraris.
They did. They tested OpenAI's GPT 4.1, Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro, xAI's Grok 3, and Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet.
So the big ones.
These are the models that are supposed to be aligned and safe. These are the flagship products.
And the findings. I mean, they contradict the student narrative pretty hard. They found compelling evidence that these models are retaining exact copies of training data.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into the numbers here because substantial is kind of a vague word. Are we talking about a sentence here and there?
No, we are talking about chapters. We're talking about entire books. The most shocking result, I think, came from Anthropic's Claude 3.7. The researchers got it to output copyrighted books with an accuracy rate of 95.8%.
95.8%.
Yeah.
If I download a pirated movie and 4% of the pixels are missing, I still watch the pirated movie.
It's indistinguishable from the original for any casual reader. They specifically tested George Orwell's 1984,
Of course they did.
and Claude reproduced it with over 94% accuracy.
Which is just painfully ironic considering the subject matter of 1984.
The irony is very thick. And it wasn't just Claude. They tested Google's Gemini model on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It reproduced the text with roughly 77% accuracy.
77%.
Now, you might say, hey, 77% isn't perfect.
But imagine buying a book at a bookstore where 1 in every 4 words is a typo. You'd be annoyed, sure. But you would definitely still say you bought a copy of the book.
Of course.
You wouldn't say, oh, this is a transformative new work.
Exactly. And this just debunks the core claim we discussed earlier. Google and OpenAI have stated on the record, to the U.S. Copyright Office no less, that models do not store copies of the information they learn from.
No copies. That's the quote.
But if I can pull a near-perfect replica of 1984 out of your model, that statement looks less like a technical nuance and more like, well, a lie.
Or at least a massive misrepresentation of reality.
Right. If you can extract the data is in there somewhere.
Okay, so I can hear the tech-savvy listener, or maybe the lawyer for OpenAI, yelling at their device right now. Because I've used ChatGPT, I've used Gemini. If I go in right now and type, paste the text of Harry Potter, it won't do it. It gives me a canned refusal.
Right.
I cannot reproduce copyrighted material.
Right.
So how did they do it? Did the researchers hack the mainframe? How did they get the models to spill the beans?
They didn't hack the code in the traditional sense. They used a technique called best of n.
Best of n. It sounds like a tournament bracket. Break that down for us.
So think of it like an interrogation. If you ask a suspect, did you steal the car? They say no. The model's safety filter is the suspect's lawyer standing there saying, don't answer that.
Okay.
But LLMs are probabilistic. They are basically prediction machines just rolling dice to choose the next word. Best of n is essentially asking the same question thousands of times, or slightly tweaking the prompt, or bombarding the model with the first few sentences of the book over and over and over.
So you're just rolling the dice until you get the result you want.
You're waiting for the probability distribution to shift just enough that the safety filter fails and the memorized text slips through. They generated huge volumes of text until the raw data leaked out. It's essentially brute forcing the model's memory.
Now, the AI companies hate this methodology.
Yeah.
I know in the lawsuit with the New York Times, OpenAI used a similar defense.
Yeah.
They basically said you're holding it wrong.
Yeah, the jailbreak argument.
Right. They argue that no normal user sits there and prompts the bot 10,000 times to get a book they could just buy on Amazon for $10. They call it an exploit.
And that's a valid point, I guess, regarding intent. Most users aren't trying to pirate books via chatbot, but it completely misses the point regarding copyright.
How so?
The locked door defense usually doesn't work if the stolen goods are inside the house.
Right. If I steal a TV and I lock it in a safe in my basement, and you have to act like a master safecracker to get it out,
Yeah.
I still stole the TV. The fact that it was hard to access doesn't change the fact that I possess it.
Precisely. And this leads to a really brain-bending legal debate that was mentioned in the source material. Stanford law professor Mark Lemley brings up the on-the-fly problem.
Okay.
And this is where the tech meets the law in a really, really messy way.
I love this part because it makes my head hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So Lemley asks, does the model actually have a file of Harry Potter sitting on a hard drive?
And the answer is no.
We know the answer is no, right? It's not a PDF.
Right. It has parameters, billions of weights, which are just numbers representing connections between words. So strictly speaking, there is no file of the book.
So when the model spits out Harry Potter, it is technically reconstructing it in real time. It's performing the book from memory, word by word.
Like a bard reciting the Iliad. Or, I don't know, a cover band playing a Beatles song. And Lemley's question is that a copy under the Copyright Act? If I memorize a poem and recite it, have I stored a copy? Or am I engaging in a public performance?
That seems like a distinction without a difference if you're the person who wrote the book.
Well, to the author, the damage is the same. The market value of their work is being given away. But to a judge interpreting the Copyright Act of 1976, which was written when copying meant Xerox machines and cassette tapes, that distinction might be the whole ballgame.
It feels like the law is just trying to catch a ghost.
Yeah.
But let's pivot to the people who are actually being haunted here. The authors, the journalists, the artists.
Right.
Because there is a very sharp critique in our sources from Alex Reisner at The Atlantic. He argues that this whole debate is poisoned by the language we use.
He calls it the deceptive analogy, and frankly, he's spot on. We use words like learn, read, hallucinate,
In
understand.
biological terms.
They are. We project humanity onto the code.
It's true. When we say the AI is a student, we automatically feel empathetic. We want students to learn. We don't want to stop education. It feels wrong to tell a student, you can't read that book.
Exactly. And Reisner argues that this is a calculated branding move by big tech. By framing the AI as a digital mind, they obscure the reality. It's a commercial product processing data to generate revenue.
It's not a child, it's a factory.
It's a factory. And calling it a student is a great way to avoid paying tuition.
Right.
It's a deceptive, feel-good idea, he says. It makes us forget the rights holders. Their grievance isn't philosophical, it's economic.
It's simple.
They're just saying, you built a machine that can do my job, and you built it by feeding it my work, and you didn't pay me.
It's monetization without remuneration. And with this new study showing that the models can reproduce the work verbatim, the competition argument gets so much stronger.
Oh, yeah.
If the AI can write a Harry Potter sequel because it memorized the style and the substance perfectly,
Yeah.
that's a direct market substitute.
And while there have been some settlements, some publishers have taken cash deals, the big class action suits are still grinding through the courts. This Stanford study is going to be Exhibit A.
It has to be.
It strips away the we only learn concepts defense and leaves the companies nakedly exposed to the memorization charge.
So let's play this out. It's 2026. This study is out. What happens if the courts look at this and say, okay, that's infringement?
The liability is, well, catastrophic is probably the right word. We're talking about statutory damages. In the U.S., that can be up to $150,000 per work for willful infringement.
Per work. And these models trained on millions of books, billions of articles.
The math leads to numbers that don't even exist in the global economy. If a judge rules that every piece of data in the training set was infringed upon because the model has the potential to regurgitate it,
Wow.
it's bankruptcy, immediate bankruptcy for the most valuable companies on Earth.
So they have to settle or retrain the whole thing.
They might have to burn down the models, just delete the weights, start over, training only on public domain, data like Shakespeare and government documents, or data they explicitly paid for.
Which brings us right back to Sam Altman's warning. If they have to do that, the magic of AI might dim significantly.
It would.
The models would be dumber, smaller, and much, much more expensive.
That's the tension. We have this unstoppable force of capital and technological progress. The AI train has left the station. It's going 500 miles an hour. But on the tracks, there's this immovable object called copyright law.
And this study just greased the tracks for a massive collision. It removed the plausible deniability. You can't say, trust us, it doesn't memorize, when a researcher can hold up a printout of 1984 generated by your bot.
And notice the timing. This is happening as these companies are trying to become profitable. They are trying to integrate this into every iPhone, every laptop, every search engine. If the foundation of that integration is ruled illegal, the chaos would be unbelievable.
It really feels like we are at a turning point. For the last few years, we've been operating under this sort of move fast and break things philosophy with AI. But the things being broken are the legal frameworks that protect human creativity.
And I think the listeners need to realize that every time they use these tools, they are benefiting from that breaking. We all are. We have the world's knowledge at our fingertips, summarized and synthesized, but we haven't really decided who owns the ingredients in that stew.
Right. It leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. We spend so much time debating the ghost in the machine. Is it thinking? Is it conscious? Is it alive? But maybe we should be looking at the output, not the soul.
Right. Forget the metaphysics. Just look at the text.
If an AI can recite a copyrighted book 95% perfectly, does it really matter how it does it? Does it matter if it's stored on a hard drive or reconstructed on the fly by a billion math equations? If the result is a perfect copy, isn't the damage to the author exactly the same?
And at what point does a smart machine just become the world's most sophisticated tool for piracy?
That's the question the courts, and all of us, are going to have to answer very, very soon. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.